It's the 8 for 52 podcast. Here's Buschy.
Episode 4 is a go of Season 2 of the 8 for 52 podcast. Buschy with you as always. And as always, this season we are welcoming new people to co-hosting duties. And this week from HKCC and CHK Dragons, it's Ady Lee. Oh, fine round of applause there. Ady, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Buschy. Long-time fan. I'm glad I can be here today.
Well, I mean, your kids got on before you did.
Yeah, they did.
They did well. My little co-host and my commentary pals, Remy and Obi. Anyway, we're going to start this podcast with me making a laundry list of apologies because we're only into episode 4 and I've made lots of mistakes and people keep messaging me. Now, the first one's on me. Back in episode 1, I mentioned Sheehan was transferring to HKCC. I thought it was my favourite little left-arm spinner, the youngster, but it's a different Sheehan. So apologies to both Sheehans. I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce the transfer Sheehan surname, otherwise I will be having to make another apology next week.
Oh, I'll have a go.
You got it?
Yeah, Sheehan Wijatunga.
There you go.
So formerly Little Saiwan. Massive off-season signing for the Gap Ramblers and the Wanderers.
Did he play in the Wanderers game?
I think he... no, not against KCC, but he was here on the weekend when there's a cat cut away.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing Sheehan, the new signing. Now, that apology's on me. The rest of these ones are on other people here around in Hong Kong. Because every time I record this podcast, after, like, literally the second it goes out, someone will message me and go, oh, no, hang on, such and such has actually done such and such. And I'm like, people, tell me earlier. Anyway, the now unrelegated, that was news to me last week, unrelegated Sunday Elite Div 1 team from Diaspora Little Saiwan is no longer JKN. They are DLSW Tony Turners in honour of their founder, well, Tony Turner. Also from Little Saiwan News, DLSW leaders are now DLSW strikers. Another apology. Last week I said Myra Baloch was going to play for the IC Velocity, and that'll come up later in the women's cricket wrap on the weekend. And then she told me 6 hours after the podcast went out that she was injured and not playing. And final apology, using the CHK website, I said that the Witherers versus Laguna game was a washout, but it was a full game. Actually, somebody coming on the podcast WhatsApped me that one to tell me about it, Nitesh Hemlani, he'll be here soon. But the person who was scoring stopped doing the job after 5.2 overs. I can only do so much. That's the information I get. But anyway, I apologise all there. But this is a good time, Ady, to plug the 8 for 52 new podcast Instagram, because we had the old one and Borders is too technologically stupid to transfer to me. So we've had to start a new one. And it is, if you've got any gossip or you've got any corrections or you just want to say, oh, why didn't you pick my team, like usual, hello, Jinsung. It is the number 8, this is all one word, number 8, FOR, for number 5, number 2, podcast. 8 for 52 podcast, and it's the same. You can follow us on X, Twitter as well, at the 8 for 52 podcast. Those 852's numbers. Plenty to get through this week, Ady. You know the rules. Guest host has to find my story guest. Who did you get in today?
I've got my good friend and Cricket Hong Kong China stalwart, Chris Pickett, a.k.a. Wilson. He will grace us with his presence to talk through his cricketing journey, how he became an analyst when a Moneyball approach to High Performance Planet was in its infancy, and, of course, how he ended up here in Hong Kong.
Yeah, that's a huge one, getting Wilson in. We'll find out why he's called Wilson as well. That's what I'm looking forward to finding out. Of course, Tammy Chu will be back with the women's cricket wrap, and we'll do some birthdays as well. We're putting a new segment in this week, Ady. Nitesh Hemlani, I just mentioned, he's going to come down and join us in the podcast Challenge League.
Oh, superb.
I hear that people in Hong Kong love their Challenge League.
They do. They really do.
Yeah, and if you gave me $1 for everything I knew about Challenge League, I'd still be broke. So we're getting in the expert. Nitesh will come join us. Last week with Atco, I talked about how the podcast is the 9th most listened to podcast in Russia. Now, there's an update to that.
Okay, tell me.
We've tumbled.
Oh, disaster.
This week we're 10th.
Oh.
The 10th most listened to cricket podcast in Russia is the 8 for 52 podcast. Now, I've got another stat for you as well. Can you guess the number 1 city listening to last week's podcast with Atco? And it's not in Hong Kong, but it is in the US.
Okay, so we're going with a city. How are we going? Big cities?
Big cities.
I was born in Boston, so let's go Boston.
No, wrong coast.
Let's go Chicago.
Well, that's not on a coast at all, is it?
Oh, it's actually on a coast, is it?
Yeah, well, I said it's not on that coast, so it's probably on another coast. It's not in the Midwest.
Let's go with Los Angeles.
Getting warmer.
You're really testing my US geography here.
No, I mean, I literally could only name one other on that coast. Have a guess. Planes fly there from Hong Kong, at least. That narrows it down.
No, you're going to have to put me out of my misery.
San Francisco.
San Fran. Wow.
I mean, who knew?
I think there's quite a burgeoning group of cricketers in San Fran, I think.
Well, apparently there is. They're listening to the 8 for 52 podcast, and thanks for listening in. That's a huge show we've got to get through. Shall we get on with it?
Let's go.
Giddy up.
And now it's time for Outs and Ins with all last week's action in Hong Kong. Take us away, Buschy.
Yes, time for outs and ends and another September weekend of pretty much all washouts. Ady, we didn't get much cricket going.
Sadly, no. Sadly, at the start of the season, it's always a bit iffy, isn't it?
All Saturday games were washed out, so we'll move to Sunday Div 2, which is the only game over the weekend that got a result in men's senior cricket. India Club Brahmas versus the SLCC Lions, and I believe the Brahmas won the toss and elected to field. They put the Lions in. It wasn't a bad decision, really, was it? Where were they playing that one? I can't remember at the moment.
Was this GDB?
It could be. It was GDB, I think. Yeah. Did you see the score there?
I did. It looked like Niaz doing what he does and causing absolute havoc. I think nine overs, one maiden, 6 for 13.
6 for 13.
Including a platinum duck for skipper Chandran. So
I mean, not a bad bowling lineup in Sunday Div 2. Another bloke got 3 for it. He barely gets a mention. Imran Arif also playing for the India Club Brahmas. So they got 9 of the 10 wickets between the two of them. All out for 44. And then out they went to the middle. The Brahmas batters didn't get out. The opening batters of AJ and Akash putting on 48 in 5.1. That's a spanking for the Lions and a big win for the Brahmas. We'll go on to Sunday wash out at Ting Kwong Road Recreation Ground. DLSW, Tony Turner's now against USRC Elite. No points awarded in that game. There's 2 other games they got underway. They was also abandoned. No result. First one was up here, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Another tough week for the Vagabonds after Anshi's onslaught the week before. Wanderers went bang early doors after the relatively early loss of skipper Matt Rossley. But Martin Kadzia hit his first half-ton since becoming a dad of 2, 55 off 32. And then Nizakat, I think, went ape. I think he was on 141 not out off 81, 10 fours, 10 sixes. Probably had Anshi's 247 off 132 from the previous week in his sights had it not been for rain. But the bowling figures don't look particularly healthy for anyone there.
Look, if you're a Vagabond, look on the bright side. Week before got smashed for 247. This week only got smashed for 141 by somebody playing for the Hong Kong China men's team. But it is the first game I want to mention that Martin could see it for the Wanderers. He's now moved teams like Nizakat did. And like you said, congratulations. Birth of Logan, I believe his name is.
Yep, that's right.
So that's a washout. So we just wanted to run through some scores. And the same down at KCC. I was broadcasting this one. The Templars versus PACC Elite. Templars won the toss, elected to bowl. And one would suggest maybe that was the wrong decision. I'm not going to question upcoming next week's guest host, Jay Davidson. But he did elect to bowl and they got Zishan. Zishan went out there to open this time. He didn't open last week, but this week he did. Smashed 64 off 38. We thought, oh, that's impressive. Then Hafiz Khan decided to smash a few. He got 73 off 88. And then Yassim came out, smashed 72 off 50. 320 for 9 off 46. It was already slightly delayed because we had a wet pitch to start with, so it was only a 46 over match if it was to get underway. It didn't. Jay Davidson did get 3 wickets and they got some late wickets, but the damage was done early. They didn't get back on. Had they got on for the 20 overs that were required, without losing a wicket in those 20 overs, KCC Templars by DLS required 180 to win. So it would have been fun to watch.
Yeah, it would have been. It would have been a great game.
Sonny and Barbo was in the side, Jamie also in great form. But in the end, another washout. That's the outs and ins. Let's hope this next weekend coming up is better. We'll check it out in Ins and Outs now.
Ins and Outs next. all the upcoming action in cricket in Hong Kong. Take us away, Buschy.
Yes, it's time for ins and outs. Fingers crossed we get some cricket underway this weekend here in Hong Kong. We're going to start with Saturday Div 1 up here at Hong Kong Cricket Club. We should say we are recording at Hong Kong Cricket Club. I think it's the third time I've recorded here. Anch was recorded here, and Martin as well. We talked about it a bit earlier.
I'm coming in a much lesser level than the your two prior my stories.
Beautiful. All together, it's great being up here up the hill. And speaking of which, the Gap Ramblers playing against my KCC Crusaders. We're going head-to-head first game. What do we think?
I'm a Gap Rambler, so I'm always going to go for Gap Rambler. I can give you an exclusive. I can give you a starting 11, which you haven't had that many of prior to games going on.
Rarely do we, especially it's a Tuesday we're recording. You've already got the team ready. That's how ready the Gap Ramblers are.
Always keen. Go
for it. Give us 11.
We'll go with Xian, who we've already spoken about.
Yep.
And then Arya Panjwani.
Oh, yeah, the Iceman.
Skipper Jack Metters. Older Shiv Mathur.
Oh, he's coming on the podcast. Oh, no, I'm not going to say that. That was a secret.
Shiv Mathur, then Jared Mongston, myself, George Lacey, who transferred from the HKCC Witherers over the off-season, Gare Curry, Mayor Patel, who's another new signing from Kai Tak, Saptashi Mukherjee, and then Mohsin Khan. So we've got 3 debutants playing for the Ramblers for the first time on the weekend.
Lovely, and you're going to be out there as well. It's going to be a huge game. I'm going to have to tip against you. I'm a Crusaders man, and they sometimes do my heart, but not as much as the Saracens. So I'm going the Crusaders this week. But good luck to you and the team and the 3 debutants. It's going to be a cracker. I'm sure it'll be on HKCC YouTube.
It will be.
So check that out Saturday. That starts at 1 p.m. Also at 1 p.m. over at Ting Kwong Road Recreation Ground in Saturday Div 1. It's Lama versus CCC Jinsung.
Whoa, this is a tough one.
This is going to be brilliant because I know that Jinsung are going to have the podcast on in the bus on their way there because they did that last time. I didn't pick them. So I'll do my tip after yours.
I'm going to go with Lama, fresh from their amazing defence where they defended 90-odd, 70-odd?
Oh, yeah, that was ridiculous. Against Pact, who was that against? I remember, it was India Club or something.
Yeah, I sent a note to Justin, who I spend quite a lot of time on the paddle court with, saying, talk me through this one. And he said, we can't do this over text. It's got to be in person. So I think there's a big story behind this one.
Well, I like it too. I'm going Lama. And of course, if I pick Jinsung, they'll probably lose and blame me. So I'll go against them this week. Saturday Div 2 at KCC 1 p.m. DLSW Thunder versus the Malhart KCC Saracens.
Yeah, I'm in DLSW Thunder. The never redders, I think, are rubbing off on.
They did it again last week. Broke my heart on the Wednesday game. They had the team 4 for 17.
Yeah.
They'll get there eventually. We love our Saracens. GDB 1 p.m. on Saturday afternoon is Kai Tak versus Centaurs.
I'm going to plump for the Centaurs. There are a few guys playing in some of the Cantonese-speaking men's teams here at HKCC, and I'm backing them to do well for the Centaurs.
I'm going the Centaurs as well because Atco is a former Centaur, last week's podcast host. Sunday Div 1 into the big games. USRC Vagabonds, who have just been on a hiding at Hong Kong Cricket Club. They'll be glad to go somewhere else. They're up against the Diasqua Little Saiwan Tony Turners at Ting Kwong Road Recreation Ground from 9:20 a.m.
I didn't know Tony, actually, but I did a little bit of research. I didn't realise he was such a significant contributor, not only to Little Saiwan Cricket, but also to CHK, both as a player as well as a national selector. So it's really nice to see him being recognised.
He was huge in all sorts of sports as well. He was in horse racing as well, I believe. And, it sounded like an amazing man. Passed away in 2022, sadly. So
that's right.
The Little Saiwan team are honouring him with their name. What do you think?
I'm going to go for the Tony Turners. It rolls off the tongue very nicely as well.
I found it difficult to say, but Tony Turners, I feel like the S shouldn't be there. But yeah, the Vagabonds, for all that, they've got to be a little downbeat at the moment, so I'm going the Tony Turners as well. Up here at Hong Kong Cricket Club, 10 a.m, it's the Wanderers, featuring Nazaka and Martin Kutsia, moving across, against Pack Elite, which is just a crazy good side.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be runs here, aren't there? You know, Pack Elite went off against the Templars. So.
They've been scoring every game. I mean, Hafiz Khan can't stop scoring, and now Zishan and Yasim back in the side. They're scoring. It's a run fest. Yeah. I mean, but of course, you get either of those 3 out early, and they can collapse.
Yep.
But then they've also got that bowling lineup of Nasrullah, Haroon, Tanvir, Yasim, and Gaz. I mean, that's a decent side.
I'm going to have to go home support with the Wanderers. I think Matt Rossley he's bringing an extra dimension to being a captain. So
he played brilliantly at KCC, that 58.
He grounded out.
When everybody else fell around him, he did great. But I still think Pack are going to be too strong. So I'm going Pack, you're going Wanderers. It's the first time we've deviated for a while. And the other game I will be calling, of course, as always, down at Kowloon Cricket Club from 10 a.m, USRC Elite versus the Templars. Have you even seen the USRC? Have they played one full game yet? Maybe one.
Maybe one.
Yeah, it's been a struggle for anyone to get any points this year. So what's your call?
I'm going to go for the Templars. I think Namibian Nightmare Jay Davis is going to have a day. I think he went 3 for 80. It's been a long time since I've seen him go for a few.
He was not happy.
I think he's going to come back, and I think he's going to.
Well, I'll have to find out first because Zishan belted one through extra cover. He went down to field it, and it's hit his wrist.
Oh,
came off. Thought it was broken.
Yeah. Grabbed
some ice. Went back on an over later. Bowled. Got 3 more wickets. Mm-hmm. Then came off, and then the rain break said, I think I need an x-ray. He's just tough as nails, that man. And just as long as his hand's all right, it was his left hand, so it's not his bowling arm. But still, the Templars very strong. Everyone's still in town, so you got Bubba and Azaz. I'm going the Templars on that one. Make sure you tune in to KCC YouTube for that one at 10 a.m. And also, what was the other game? The Saracens game will be on Saturday live on KCC YouTube. I don't know what the HKCC ones are doing, but I'm assuming exactly the same live. Tune in much. If you can't get down to the grounds to support your team, make sure you tune into the YouTube channels. Give them some support and help us broadcast cricket here in Hong Kong. Now, with National Day coming up on October 1st, we've got cricket games as well. So not just Saturday and Sunday. What is October 1st? Is it a Tuesday?
Feel like it's a Monday.
It's one of the two.
It's a Tuesday. You're right.
Tuesday, because it's a horrible little public holiday. There's a lovely public holiday for National Day. I don't mean that. It's just it's not on a Monday for a long weekend. Anyway, I digress. Pack Elite, who played on Sunday up here at HKCC, back down to Ting Kwong Road against the Little Sowon Tony Turners, 9:20 a.m.
I think Pack Elite for me on this one.
I agree. Not that I've seen the Tony Turners at all this year. They haven't played a game. So, and we still, always the question, is Ehsan playing?
Yeah.
Is he not? If he is, then a game changes. But as it stands, we'll both go for Pack on that one. And there's a Sunday Div 2 game on October 1st as well at HKCC up here. The India Club Brahmas versus the HKCC Optimists.
Oh, this is going to be a tough one. New skipper for the Optimists.
Who's skipper this year?
I think it is Akash Shah.
Okay,
actually,
nice.
Doing the skippering. But, I mean, India Club have done all the recruiting. If you look at that team is stacked beyond belief. So it pains me to go against my home club, but I think this is going to be an India Club Brahmas win, this one.
Yeah, I'd like to say that Niaz, after he left KCC, is going to lose every game, but he's not when he's got Imran and those two are bowling end to end. I am going for the Brahmas as well. So that's it for ins and outs this week. Good luck to you, Ady, getting out there, having a bat as well, and a lot of cricket between Saturday, Sunday and next Tuesday. Tune in to all the YouTube channels if you can, or get down to the grounds and have a look at cricket here in Hong Kong.
Always denied entry by the English gentry. Now we're driving Bentleys, playing 2020.
Yes, it's time for the women's cricket wrap. Another one this week. Tammy Chu is back. Hello, Tammy.
Hi.
Right. How many games did we get through? We had a lot of games out at PKVR Reservoir last weekend. Did any get underway? Because we've been through the men's, and that was almost completely washed out. Did we get any games underway?
We got one.
Oh, good. Not the one you were playing in one, though.
Oh, no, not.
So Div 1 washed out. That was you.
Yep.
Lama Roses and India Club Velocity, where Myra Baloch did not play in.
Yeah.
One of my apologies earlier in the podcast. But it was the HKCC Derby.
Yeah.
The up-and-coming Diamonds versus the Cavaliers. So, I mean, it's weird. The 8:30 game didn't get underway. The 2:30 game didn't get underway, but
Yeah.
the 11:30 a.m. game did.
Yeah, true.
It's just like window in one little bit of cricket out there at PKVR.
Yeah.
Well, how did it go?
Cavaliers bat through all 20 overs, got 208 runs. The Diamonds, the new team, got all in 107.
So 101 run loss.
Yeah. But I would say it's well done to one of the new players in Diamonds, Bowie Chen. She is the only one who hit 2 boundaries.
Oh, well done to Bowie
yeah.
Chan for the Diamonds.
yeah.
And scored 20.
Yeah, and she got 1 wicket as well.
And hang on, Ady, is your wife playing in this game?
Yeah, my wife and our lovely auntie were both playing for the Cavs.
Oh, very nice.
So I was there helping out the Diamonds.
Your auntie's name's not Extras, is it?
It
It's
is.
Extras. Top scored with 147.
Yeah, the extras had a great day out.
I had to learn the rule for Div 2. It was completely foreign to me. Again, if you look at Crick Heroes and look at the scoring, I'm like, what is going on? There's not that many no balls. There's not that many wides, but it's 2 runs for each.
Correct. Yeah.
Exactly.
And the other thing I learned about the Crick Hero scoring is the computer doesn't know that it's an 8-ball only over.
Correct.
Yeah, true.
So someone's spamming the dot balls.
Dot.
Yeah, to finish the over.
Yeah, which is ruining people's strike rates, by the way.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll never know who has the best strike rate at the end of the season.
No.
So that was the only game. Well done to the Cavaliers. What have we got coming up this week? Shall we start with Div 1? Oh, by the way, we both picked the Cavaliers on that tip.
Yep.
Well done. So I'm now on 4 and you're on 3. Upcoming tips, Div 1, Sunday, September 29, 8:30 a.m. It is the KCC Maidens up against the SCC Divas.
Any idea on the KCC squad?
No, I just now remember it's a Tuesday. Teams get released on a Thursday,
Okay.
but we can cast our minds back to the first KCC Maidens game and recall that they only had 8 players. I don't know how many they've got yet. I can confirm from Instagram at least that Yasmin Dazwani is celebrating her 30th in London,
Happy
which is
birthday, Yas.
not anywhere near PKVR Reservoir. You're going to give us a tip on who you think you're quite involved. with your wife playing in the.
I'm
Div 2?
gonna go with the Divas. I think.
What do you think, Tammy?
Divas.
Okay, everybody at KCC, close your ears right now because I am going with the Divas. Also in Div 1, a team I've not heard of before, so they haven't played or it's been washed out before we started our segments. Serendip Lionesses versus CCC Fung Wong.
Yep.
So what do we know about the Lionesses? Are they associated with India Club or anything or Sri Lanka Club?
Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka Club, that's
Yeah.
where the Serendip comes in.
Yeah.
And CCC, Ady Lee knows all about CCC. What do you know about the Fung Wong?
Well, Fung Wong, great development team. It's a lot of women who are relatively new, I think, to cricket. Relatively, I think, compared to some of the other teams.
Yeah.
Highly passionate, will throw themselves around the field, will give their best. I'm going to go for Fung Wong here.
Tammy?
Fung Wong.
Yeah.
Because I think the first game for the Lioness, they only got 7 players.
Yeah. The Maiden's problem. Lioness's problem. There's a theme. Okay, Tammy is going with CCC. I will also, after receiving a little pin from Craig and Gower once when I was there, I will go for Craig and Gower as well. The only team from Craig and Gower I will never tip is Jing Sung. Anyway, that's a story for another
Unless
day.
they give you a pin, maybe.
No, I'm feuding with Ingram. Anyway, the final game, 2:30 p.m, HKCC Willow Wilders. That sounds familiar. You going to actually play this weekend if we get on?
Yeah, I'm playing.
But it's a big game.
If it's
a
not
tough
washed
game. The Asqua Little Siwan Wasps.
Yep.
That's a huge game. Obviously, you're going to pick yourself. What do you think? Being you're not involved. Your wife's not in the Willow Wilders.
No,
but we are at HKCC.
It's going to be close, but I think the Willow Wilders will have all that. They really wanted to play on the weekend. They all arrived there, and the sheet of rain that came in literally as the toss happened, and everyone running under that makeshift tent. But I think they're good to go. I think they're.
Well, I'm just going to mix it up.
raring.
I'm going with the Wasps. Otherwise, we've all picked the same thing this week. So I'll go with the Wasps and we'll see how we go. 3 big games. No Div 2 this week. It's all Div 1? The Serendip Limit Lionesses are in Div 1, right?
Yeah.
So it's 3 Div 1 games out at PKVR Reservoir starting at 8:30, as it is every Sunday. If you want to check out the best women's cricket T20 in Hong Kong, head out to PKVR Reservoir this weekend. Tammy Chu, as always, thank you. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you.
And now it's time for My Story, where the superstars of cricket come in and tell us their story.
Yes, it is time for My Story on the 8 for 52 podcast, and a very special guest as always. This week, we've got from Cricket Hong Kong, China, their lead analyst, Chris Wilson Pickett. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Peregrine.
Brilliant. Wilson, I met you probably 10 years ago when I first moved to Hong Kong, but clearly your cricket journey starts well before that. So let's go back to Mini Wilson. When did you pick up a bat or ball?
Well, that's a long time ago because obviously I'm over probably 45 plus years ago. And I think basically I started like most kids would in the UK. I playing either on the road outside your house or on the green or piece of grass that was near. So
where was this in the UK?
In Brighton, in Sussex, in England. So south of London, 50 miles south of London on the coast. So yeah, a group of us, and in that era, you pretty much knew everybody who lived in your street. I lived in a street which was round, which had a big green in the middle, so it's perfect for sport. So we were massively sporty in that street. And we just played cricket, we played football, whatever was the big thing on TV at that time, that was what we were doing.
So when did you go from being in the cul-de-sac to putting on some whites and playing proper junior cricket?
That would have been at the end of the 1970s, about 78, 79, when I started playing part of the school team. So that would have been a middle school team. So in England terms, I don't know what that is, year 8 or whatever, but it was between 8 and 12 years of age and that. So we just put together a school team. We had an absolutely exceptional teacher called John Stone, who I think a lot of people of my era who went to the Colding school that would put down that he made them love sport. He was such a great guy on all levels, all sports and everything like that. He's a tremendous character, and I'm in one of those Facebook kind of like school groups and that, and you just, all the people on there just talk about him and the influence he had on them. So yeah, so if there's anybody to blame for me to get into cricket, it's probably John Stone, but I thank him hugely for it and that. So yeah, so we played school cricket, and we one of the incidents there was that we had to fulfil a home fixture without a home ground. So we decided as a group of very determined players that we cut our own wicket on the football pitch. So we got the mower out. We managed to, in those days, things were a bit more flexible. We managed to negotiate that we could do some extra homework if we were allowed some time off in lessons to go down and cut the pitch. We went round and borrowed the roller from my grandfather, who lived just round the corner, and wheeled it round. And we worked in like shifts of rolling and cutting to prepare this wicket, which probably, if we were any older than between 9 and 10, if we'd been bowling on it, probably would have gone through the top and probably done 1 or 2 of us damage. But at 8 or 10, we were okay and everything like that. So yeah.
Well, we should have a HKCC Gappers program looking after the squarer. I'm sure Peter would love that. But before we go any further, your nickname Wilson, you've got to talk us through where this came from as well.
Well, once I sort of played some club cricket and everything like that, you want to get a bit better. So I was a member at Sussex County Cricket Club, and that junior member, and they did junior nets in the winter and everything like that. So I think one of the first sessions I went to, the coach at that session was a guy called Chris Waller, former Surrey and Sussex left-arm spinner, tremendous guy and everything like that. I walked into the net with my friends, and he sort of went through the register, and he came, and I think I was the last one on the list, and he said, "Oh, by powers of deduction, you must be Mr. Pickett." And I said, "That's right." And he said, "From this day forward, you will be known as Wilson." And he looked at me and said, you probably don't know why I'm calling you Wilson. And I said, "Yeah, actually, I probably do. I think you're referring to the American singer, Wilson Pickett," and everything like that. And he just looked at me and said, you are 9, not like 50, are you? Because he said that's an awfully complex knowledge of music for a 9-year-old.
And we should point out that it's not because you looked like Wilson Pickett.
Not at all. No. He's more like a Jane Brown type character, so I'm definitely not a Jane Brown type
Well,
character.
I'm glad you've told us that, because I mean, at one point I thought perhaps it was related to the Tom Hanks movie, and your head looks a little bit like a volleyball.
That has sort of come in over the years, and people have said, "Oh, is it to do with the Tom Hanks film?" But no, it goes way back to the late 70s when I was doing junior club cricket, and in my journey, obviously, we'll talk about it later, but I got back, I ended up working at Sussex, and pretty much the first day I arrived, I walked through the door, and Chris Waller, who was there, by then the academy coach, I walked in the door and he said, Wilson's back in the building, and everything like that, and it restarted really on that. So yeah, that's how it is.
So you grew up, you were a member at Hove. So you'd go and watch the pros play.
Yeah, my first ever game was, I believe, I remember right, against Derby. It's a Sunday league game. I didn't know we were going. My mum had prepared stuff. My mum and dad were superb supporters of me when I was young and everything like that and stuff. And I remember opening the fridge and there was these 2 bottles of like cola, and I can't even remember what the brand was, but it was sitting there. And I went to take them. Oh yeah, I think mum had got them. And she said, "Oh no, you can't use them. We need to keep those." I'm like, "Why?" Wouldn't tell me. And then on the Sunday we went out on the bus and we got to this place and I'm like, "Where are we?" And they said, "Oh, we're coming to watch the cricket." And I kind of thought it's like watching it down the park. And then we walked in, and pretty much from that day onwards I was sold, and that was it. That was my club. And everything like that. So yeah.
And probably some dreams to play for Sussex as well? Or?
Well, yeah, at that age I had no idea how good a cricketer I was or could be and everything like that. But I think as I moved on, I kind of, as a bowler, I lacked that extra bit of pace that you would require to go into first-class cricket. I became clever with my bowling, and that I could swing the ball pretty well. I'd learnt as a young kid, and we didn't have that depth of coaching that you might have now, so I kind of learned, again, in my back garden, in my grand's back garden and everything like that. I could swing a tennis ball and things like that, so I just taught myself skills to accommodate for the fact that I didn't really have much pace, and I knew that basically every batter was probably going to come after me and everything like that, even at junior level with that. So yeah, so my aspirations for playing first class cricket probably were gone in my early teens, but I didn't care. Cricket, just play to whatever level I could play.
Okay.
About that.
Okay. And then at what point did you decide that if the playing route maybe wasn't an option, that actually a career still in cricket, and with being an analyst, when being an analyst was not a thing, Moneyball didn't exist at that point. Like, at what point did you decide that was actually an option? And clearly there must have been someone at Sussex who also saw that as an opportunity, and kind of a meeting of worlds happened.
Yeah, well, I'd obviously played club cricket for about 20 plus years at sort of senior level and everything like that. And in that, at club level, we played at a reasonable standard and everything like that. So I interacted with I knew some of the pros and everything like that. And my best mate, a guy called Keith Greenfield, went on to play for Sussex. He got taken on what they call a bursary, which is a bit like an internship kind of thing at Sussex as an academy player. And he went on to become a first-class pro. He's now academy director there and stuff like that. And we kind of grew up together playing, and then once he became a first-class cricketer, I went to watch him more and more. Therefore, I got to know the players. So I became quite good pals with Peter Moores, and that obviously quite famous in the coaching circles and everything like that. He was at that stage a player, then he moved on to be player coach. And so I knew him quite well, and we interacted. I'd gone through my coaching certificates in the early 90s, so I was a level 3 coach and everything like that. I got pulled in early 90s, just after I passed my level 3. They approached me to be one of their pathway coaches, and that. So I did the under-13s pathway, and there's a lot of lads in the county system now that came through me and that, who are either at Sussex or have gone on to other counties. Tommy Smith, one of them, who played in the 2020 finals day for Gloucester and that, and it was really great to see him win that trophy and everything like that. For someone from your past and everything like that. But so I moved through that. I had a lot of connections with Pete. I know Pete as a personal friend, as also from his coaching background, and he knew me. And then suddenly I'd obviously gone for university, qualified to be an engineer, so I was working in engineering, and that made me quite gadgety and everything like that. So Pete approached me on one occasion and said, "Look, you're quite gadgety. You're obviously a level 3 coach. You've got good combination of ability with computers and stuff like that. But coaching, I've got this kind of idea for a thing called an analyst, and that. You're interested? So I said, yeah, fine, we can look at it. I mean, I don't know what it means, but let's go. So initially they had literally a box load of tapes, videotapes. So probably even people in Hong Kong don't even know, this era don't even know what a videotape is. But I used a mixture of connected videotapes to actually make profile tapes for some of the players. And then Pete went away. I still wasn't working at Sussex. I was still in my engineering days and everything like that. But then Pete went away to I think it was England under 19 or A-side tour to the West Indies, and he saw what was one of the first systems by a company called Sports Code. He used it a bit, kind of liked it, but it had some shortcomings and everything like that. And he came back, and in conversations with another coaching person, Bob Woolmer, obviously very famous in the coaching circles and obviously a great cricketer himself, they got into conversations, and he discovered as Bob's role at that stage of the being the South African coach, and South Africa were just about to play in the Commonwealth Games. I can't remember what year, it had been the late 90s. There was a Commonwealth Games in Kuala Lumpur in that. South Africa had commissioned a company to produce a software system based around some of Bob Woolmer's recommendations for the South Africa team to use. So in the conversations, it came about that he kind of said, look, once we're through Commonwealth Games, I'm okay for you to talk with them and look at the system. So Pete contacted me and said, I've got this really wacky idea. Would you like to come and work for Sussex as an analyst? You're going to.
It's interesting. It's that long ago. I mean, you're talking late 90s.
Yeah, late 1999. This would be
exactly. So 25 years. It's been a quarter of a century since the concept officially of an analyst came in.
Yep.
And it's just been a progress from there. So you started. Go on from that point.
Yeah, so basically he said, you want to do it, I'm going to have to, probably tie in a bit of admin work as this and that, because I haven't 100% sold it to the board or to the people at Sussex, because it doesn't exist. We're kind of creating a new thing. So I said, yeah, fine, whatever. So I was with my engineering work, I was doing like contract by contract, so I wasn't tied down to anything. So I literally walked in one day and I kind of just said to my mum and dad, look, just so you know, it's my decision, and they always supported me on everything. But just so you know, in politeness, I'm going to jack in the engineering for a moment. I'm going to try and do work with Sussex, and they were fine. They let me always go with what I wanted to do, and they supported me, and so within a week, I was kind of there at Sussex and starting that role and that.
That's amazing. I knew your connection with Peter Moores. I didn't realise that Bob Woolmer had also had a say in your eventual career. I mean, I met him a few times, but he didn't directly put me in the frame. Sure, but he was kind of indirectly helping to kind of position the role of an analyst. And I think Bob Woolmer is a celebrated coach. A lot of people point towards the earpiece and Anticronia, which unfortunately is not the best way to think of how innovative he was as a coach. But I had no idea that you'd cross paths indirectly with him like that, and that ultimately is why you offered the position as a permanent role.
Yeah, and he went straight after that. I think he finished with South Africa, and he was Warwickshire's coach. Yeah. So Warwickshire, sort of 6 months after I brought the system in through him. And they had a guy who was actually their S&C coach. I think his name is Simon Hollyhead. And he kind of got the role of kind of covering that post and everything like that. But fundamentally that day, because there's only two of us on the circuit, it was very difficult because the infrastructure to put the cameras in didn't exist at the grounds. So you really had to fight and everything like that. Even though you were working in a top-level sporting environment, the environment wasn't actually even sure of what you were doing. So I'd arrive at grounds and sometimes have to do a lot of negotiation in that.
So let's talk a little bit. So you're an analyst at Sussex. It's a relatively new thing. Nowadays, players would expect to have all their data, their video, everything to have on hand. How easy or how hard was it to get the Sussex players on board with what you were doing?
I have to say, I can't remember it being difficult. and that maybe that's because I think Sussex at that stage is an exceptionally good group of players, and they did for the following sort of 10 or 11 years and everything like that. But I don't really remember having too many struggles. I think, the first time you rock up to a guy who's just come back from a test match or has been playing for Australia in one day, to actually put a thought across to them is quite intimidating and everything like that. But I never really felt I got ever put in that position.
Who are the players that were the international players around that era for Sussex?
God, when I first joined in that squad, you had Michael Bevan was playing. There was Chris Adams, who back end of the 90s went on a tour to South Africa. Obviously, pretty soon into my tenure, we brought in Mushtaq Ahmed. We had a guy called Murray Goodwin, who was Zimbabwean.
Yeah.
I went to school with Murray Goodwin.
Did you? There you go. I'll have to.
How about that for a little bit of
next time
Buschy trivia?
Yeah, next time I speak to him, I'll have to mention Buschy.
I used to play cricket against his brother. He was a year or two older than me.
Yeah.
Grew up in Bunbury, Western Australia.
Yeah, Bunbury. Yeah. So we had a lot of players in that environment, and that Pete Moores was the coach by then. He'd been player coach, but he moved into full coaching and everything like that. So, yeah, I don't really remember. I mean, in the early days, we were quite restricted in what we do because the equipment was just it's not anywhere near what it is now and everything like that. The software was. My fundamental role at that stage would probably be just being able to show back and take players through footage and everything like that. There was a small bit of data kind of analysis and everything like that, but fundamentally in the early day you were kind of like the spy in the cab. You were the taco machine with video and everything like that. But we built it up, and Pete was the right person to have because he was so innovative, he was so encouraging. He gave me basically a blank piece of paper and said, look, no, there's no role like it, so you can write your own job spec effectively in that. And I did have some tough times in the first few years where it wasn't so much the players and the coaching staff, but maybe the rest of the club that didn't quite understand what I was doing. So might have seen it as a bit frivolous use of funding and budgets and everything like that. But gradually but surely we bought into things, and then as we got forward to 2003, the year we won the championship for the first time, which was the first time in the club's history, we basically, I'd had to get on board because I had the admin role. There'd been some kickback and saying I couldn't go to some of the away games. So what I did was I contacted a lad who had been one of my Colts players at club level, a lad called Barney Douglas, who was at Nottingham Trent, and sort of said to him, right, what are you doing for the summer? And he was like, I haven't really thought about it. I said, right, you're basically going to go around England with Sussex and that. And he said, what? I said, look, got this idea. I'm an analyst. Yes, of course I do, and everything like that. How do you fancy covering with me the overall role? You wouldn't necessarily be the analyst part, but you'd be going away to the games and doing all the coding and everything like that. So Barney came on board. He did a lot of the away games in the 2-2, 2-3 season. And then as the season progressed and we got into like the death of the season and we were close to winning the championship, me and him were out one night in Brighton and we just started to say, God, if only we realised at the beginning of the season what was going to happen, it would be great to have done a documentary, because Barney had come out of a broadcast journalism degree, and we it's quite a good idea. And then we kind of kicked it around and said, well, hang on, the whole season would be quite boring, but the excitement of the last 3 game running might be an idea. So we put it to Pete. Pete, as ever, was innovative. He said, look, as long as the players don't feel like it's a potential jinx, I'm happy to run with it. So we basically went, that was his area, so he controlled most of it and everything like that. He came on board and we produced a DVD, a video at that stage, and that called This Is History. And it was literally a fly-on-the-wall documentary and we kind of governed by Barney, but we went out with the idea of like no lighting, no sound properly. We just filmed it as it was, warts and all and everything like that. And yeah, it's out there somewhere that you can buy. I remember reading that we'd sold copies into Colombia, Dominican Republic, so there must be some Sussex fans all over the world who've got a copy of that.
So you've got the success at Sussex. How did we get to Hong Kong?
Well, yeah, and you go back and that, and obviously just going back to Sussex, we obviously moved. There was a lot we brought in as we went along, that developed and that. But the link with Hong Kong came much later. So I was and I'd obviously I said I was in engineering, so during my early my degree in England, the course had about 50 to 60% Hong Kong Chinese students on with me. And during that course, I got to know several guys and they were quite to themselves. They kept themselves to themselves and everything like that. They were quite shy guys and everything like that. But I was quite curious, and I'm a bit of a nosy person and everything like that. So I kind of like, I quite like their ethics, their culture. They were quite loyal and everything like that. So I got to know them quite well. I ended up in a couple of design groups with them and that. So we got to know each other quite well, and I got to know two guys, Ken Yam and Ricky Chung, and they become like my brothers. So we went through university together. They went back to Hong Kong, and that Ken's now a senior fireman. Ricky works in construction engineering here and everything like that. But they kind of tried to get me to come and visit them in Hong Kong throughout the kind of 90s and that, because this all happened before I went to Sussex. And around 1996, I got this call from Ken, "Oh, how you going? Is it possible you could come out this year?" And I was like, difficult cricket. I was still playing a lot of cricket and everything like that. And I said, it's a tough time. But in the course of the conversation, he got lost in translation, and somewhere along the line, Ken got the view that I was available. So the next thing I know, 2 weeks later, I get a phone call saying, right, it's all sorted. Ricky's going to cover the first bit. I'm going to cover the second bit and everything like that. We can cover about 7 weeks. How long can you get? So I'm like, oh, right, okay. I can't like disappoint these guys because they put a lot of effort in. So I walked in. Again, as I said, I was on contract work, so I could take time off as I wanted. I was in the middle of a contract. I said I won't be around for 7 weeks. Went into town, bought flight tickets via Munich or Frankfurt or somewhere like that, straight off the shelf like that, and came out here, and pretty much this was pre-handover time, so 96, and just fell in love with the place. Just loved it and that. And then from then on, I came back kind of every 2 to 3 years. And that, at the end of the cricket season and stuff, I didn't come during the SARS periods. They warned me off, so they said, SARS, no, don't come. And once SARS finished, I started doing it. And then in the mid sort of 2000s, we'd moved on coach to a guy called Mark Robinson, who was massively influential in developing me at Sussex and everything like that, and a fantastic guy, now coach at Warwickshire and's done England to win the World Cup. He was doing the under-19 World Cup, which happened to be the one that Hong Kong were playing in New Zealand. And him and Carl Hopkinson, who was that by then one of our assistant coaches at Sussex, former player, they were both there. So I kind of convinced them that I would actually be better off being in Hong Kong, because in the winter it's kind of like, you go away to write your books as a writer. I went away to kind of form all the battle plans for the following season. So what I did was I kind of convinced them that, why don't you let me stay in Hong Kong for a bit longer? I'm close to you while you're over in New Zealand. It's easier communications. We can work through stuff. So they bought into it, and basically the ethics was, and Sussex was a great place to work because they trusted the staff, they believed in the staff, and they let us do our jobs, and their only primary thing was, as long as you deliver your job, then we really don't mind how you do it. So they let me come, they let me do that, and literally it kind of moved on and moved on. It got longer and longer. It worked. I went back, plans were all sorted, so Robbo never stopped the plan. He's quite a superstitious guy, liked to stick to routine. And then I was out here in 2011, the year that England won the Ashes in Australia. And my mate, one of the guys who's our librarian at Sussex, had gone to watch the Ashes. And on the way back, he was flying back through Hong Kong. So I said, well, don't just stop off for 2 hours and get on a plane. Why don't you spend 10 days with me? So I had to look for things for us to do. And I'd noticed that World League 3 was going on. But it turned out that it was happening after he went. So he left, and I thought, right, I might be interested to see what World League 3 comes in. So I tried to find out where the games were. Didn't really know where the games were. And put an email into Buschy, found Buschy's email address and said, look, this is who I am. This is what my role is at Sussex. I'm really keen to watch some cricket. So, would you mind if I go and look at some of the other games, and if you like, I'll report back to you and everything like that. So my connection started there really, and that. So yeah.
And Buschy was a brilliant guy, and he would have, I think, fallen over himself to have someone like you with your background coming in. I mean, associate nations aren't normally flush with budget to have an analyst, but to have you in town and to effectively build a friendship and also just to offer your services, that clearly was the start of where your Hong Kong journey actually started from a cricket perspective.
Yeah, definitely, because I think he phoned me literally 30 minutes. It was less than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
He phoned me back and said, we're training at Mission Road. And he said, do you know what it is? And I said, I think I do, actually, because I've got some friends that live near there. It's near the the softball court. He said, yes, you do know it. So I went to meet the guys and said, look, let's have a look and everything like that. And I said, look, I'm more than willing to do it. Buschy said to me, look, I can't afford to pay you. I said, doesn't matter. I'm being paid basically to do another job. I've already contacted Sussex. They're fine. As long as I get my job done, they don't mind what I do and everything like that. So I spent the week of World League 3 going around the opposition teams, scouting them, then going back to the team hotel. I think they stayed at the Nathan Hotel in Nathan Road. And I just did a report to the players. It was all pen and paper then. They had no equipment. And so I built that relationship up. I came back the following winter and they were going to Nepal on a tour. So he approached me and said, would you mind? I said, no. Again, I cleared it with Sussex. They were more than happy and everything like that. So I went on that first tour. It's Bubba's debut tour as well, and staff. And I think it might have been Kinchit's debut tour to Nepal, where we qualified through to the next stages of World Cup qualifiers and that. And then I think it was 2012. That would have been 2011 December. Then 2012, I joined up with them in UAE for what would have been ACC Premier Trophy or something like that. Anchi played in that tournament and stuff for the first time I met Anchi. And then I went back to Sussex. I came back. In the process of those 2 years, I'd met my now wife, Carol, and that a local who teaches here in Hong Kong. And we got married in 2013, and that here in Hong Kong. So I went through the full Chinese wedding and everything like that. Family came over.
Tea ceremony.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, I don't think I've ever smiled so many times for a photograph in my life, but it's a fantastic experience. I actually loved it and everything like that. And then literally, although I got married, I still had to go back to England to do my next season. So I was on the plane, literally probably on the steps of the plane, going onto the plane at Hong Kong, the airport, and Buschy phoned me and said, look, there's a possibility of a role coming up. Would you be interested? And I'd kind of done 13 years of that, and I basically sort of said, you know what, I've achieved every challenge. We'd won 10 trophies in 9 years and everything like that, Sussex. So I'd said, okay, let's look into it. It developed for the half of the season I was in England, and basically next thing I know, I'm here in Hong Kong, and kind of there you go.
Okay, so you came in as an analyst, but since coming in as an analyst, you've done a number of other roles. And when I met you I think you were a CCC Hung Si coach for a little bit, and then the Cricket Hong Kong China Dragons kind of was reborn. Yep. How did that pathway stuff kind of come out?
I don't think I originally came here as a split contract. We're working with CCC and working with Cricket Hong Kong to do the Hung Si and do the Fung Wong job and everything like that. But the Dragons job kind of developed out of me also then getting involved with Pioneers. Pioneers was being run, and it's slightly gone in an obscure direction, and Buschy brought me in and said, look, I need you to kind of right the ship very quickly. So I went in, tried to right the ship, did it, got to the end task that Buschy wanted. And then fundamentally out of that, in conversation between me and Buschy, we come up with the concept of Dragons, and that's where Dragons started, basically. So yeah, I kind of then moved into developing what we saw as the 50 over side, because obviously the Hung Si, Pioneers, Fung Wong and all that was all 35 over cricket and everything like that. So yeah, so we moved in that direction.
And then you had a stint as a women's coach as well.
Yeah,
all while juggling still the analyst role for men.
And also juggling the pandemic as well.
Yeah.
That was during the pandemic. That was 2.5 years of not being able to train, not being able to play, and everything like that. So that was just lots of things going on and everything like that. As well as doing the analyst role, I remember sitting in Uganda. I got directed to go with the men to Uganda while the women were playing a tournament in Malaysia. Sitting in a Uganda hotel room watching the girls playing in Uganda and being on the phone to Saki and stuff like that. Obviously not during the game because anti-corruption doesn't allow that, but after the game and stuff like that. So it had it's an interesting dynamic and everything like that about it and that. But yeah.
How many of those associate teams now have an analyst?
There's a lot more. So when we were in Vince's last tour, Kuwait have got one, Malaysia have got one, UAE, Nepal. I mean, we obviously belong to the collective.
Was Hong Kong the first one when you decided to do it, or was there some already floating around when you came and moved over?
I wouldn't want to be quoted 100% on that and don't put your mortgage on it, but I think we would have been one of the first. Yeah, we would have been one of the first. I think the first system that we brought in here was called Fair Play or something like that and stuff, and it was pretty good. But the one we got now, MV Play, is, for me, the best one I've ever used in my career, and I've used 9 or so, and that it's very good. And you obviously know it well, Buschy, because you use it for streaming. And
yes,
like,
I do. It's my little broadcast favourite. Great stuff.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it developed. And obviously, we then, as you know, from Dragons, we got to the point where we could actually, Dragons went off and played in East Asia Cup and everything like that. I mean, it was just great to see that part of the game coming here in Hong Kong, the development of the local players and that.
Brilliant. Wilson, you've obviously been an amazing servant for Cricket Hong Kong China. You and I have shared some of my favourite times on the sideline have been you telling your story, wandering around the county circuit, talking about Murali or Buschy or anyone else. But on behalf of all of us, thank you very much. It's been amazing to hear from you today. I'm sure you've got a long storied career with Cricket Hong Kong China still.
Thank you.
But thank you.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Wilson.
Cheers, boys.
Hi, I'm Jamie Atkinson, KCC Premier League player, and you're listening to the 8 for 52 podcast with Buschy. Sorry, Bottas.
Time for a brand new segment on the 8 for 52 podcast. So brand new, I don't think we actually played a sting there. It could have just been Jamie Atkinson listening to the 8 for 52 podcast. It's brand new. It's the Challenge League. We're bringing in the Challenge League, and Ady, we've got a special Challenge League reporter each week, a man that knows more about Challenge League than anyone else in Hong Kong. It is Nitesh Hemlani. Nitesh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Buschy. Good to be on.
Right, now, we've mentioned, I can't remember if I mentioned it before this segment or after this segment, but I know nothing about Challenge League. I don't know when it's played. I don't know who plays it. I don't know where they play. Right. You're going to have to, in 5 minutes, give me a brief rundown, plus we'll get into all the games.
Okay, easily done. So the Challenge League is a fairly new league in Hong Kong cricket. It was set up maybe about 10 to 15 years ago by a couple of teams who wanted to play social cricket and get together. They used to play 30-over cricket in time slots that the Hong Kong Cricket Association would give them, so they didn't have it as part of the actual calendar. When I first came to Hong Kong, I was playing in the Challenge League for the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and I remember one season lasting 2 years to complete. So that's where it started, and it's really grown over the years. It became an official part of the calendar sometime in 2018, 2019. There was 2 divisions of 10 teams. It's since become 3 divisions of 10 teams.
That's huge.
It's the largest league in Hong Kong. They play T20 cricket.
That's why it needs to be on the podcast.
Absolutely.
There's like 30 teams out there playing Challenge League, and they want to hear how they did each week and who they're going to play. So when do they play? Saturdays? Sundays?
They play whenever CHK tells them to play.
So like weekdays as well?
Yeah, public holidays. Saturdays, Sundays. Majority of the games are on Sundays at GDB. That's what GDB really enabled when it came online, was to allow for a lot more Challenge League cricket on the Sundays over there. The people who play Challenge League come from diverse backgrounds, but one thing that unites them, of course, is that they love cricket, but they don't have either the resources or the time to commit to the more serious leagues, the Saturday, the Sunday league. A lot of these guys also play morning leagues when they get time, the corporate leagues, which we've been broadcasting recently at KCC, at PKBR Park.
Yep.
It's a big overlap of that player base with the Challenge League. Friday Masters League encapsulates all players who also come through the Challenge League system. So as you mentioned, there are huge pool of players in Hong Kong who love the game and deserve some coverage.
So there's 15 games a weekend usually, or do they don't all get to play?
They play all season. They're the longest season as well because they play right from the start of the season, first week of September, all the way to the last. The last final last year was the Challenge League final. They play until May. They're the one league who has to do the dirty work and play in the times of the year when the other more prestigious leagues take a break.
Fabulous.
So they play all year round.
Right, we've missed a few weeks, obviously, because we've only just started this in the podcast. Shall we do a wrap of last week's games?
Well, I can...
Because I need to quickly learn which team is good and which is bad for when I go to pick.
So there we go. So what I'll start with, I can let you know who won last year's finals. Maybe some context right there.
Go for it.
Well, all the data has been lost.
Was there relegation and all this in this as well? Okay,
yes,
so
so two teams go up, two teams go down. I'm not going to name and shame the teams that went down, though we'll find out as the season goes on.
Yep.
But in Division 1, the champions were the Indian Recreation Club Charlie Bears. Charlie Bears, of course, have a Saturday team. They also have a Challenge League. That's where they originated.
Okay.
They beat Indus CC in the final. Indus CC, a very strong team in Challenge League, have been thereabouts in the finals for a few years now. Division 2 was a great story. The Ceylon Sports Recreation Club Hong Kong Frontiers, they won Division 2. They are a fairly new team. They're a group of Sri Lankans who wanted to play together as their own club, formed a club through through the CHK Community Cricket Initiative under the Jockey Club. They just got together, played, formed a team, entered the league, worked their way up from Division 3 and won the Division 2 final last year.
So they're now up in Div 1.
They should be up in Div 1. And they played in the final against Tung Chung Cricket Club Caribbeans, who should also now be up in Div 1.
Oh, cool.
And Division 3, the Hong Kong Nepal Cricket Association Rhinos, the Nepalese team.
Well, I called a Morning League game with the Rhinos. I wonder if there's many of the same players that play Morning League.
They're also a great story. They came through the Jockey Club Community Cricket tournaments and they eventually entered the Challenge League, all Nepalese players. They won Division 3 after being thereabouts finals for 2-3 years. So they've promoted up to Division 2 along with the India Club Panthers who lost to them in the final.
Cool. Right. Do we go through last week's games or are we just going to go on to this week's games?
So
last week's games. Let's go.
I can tell you as of now, we've had maybe 9 games completed so far. So if you want to just go through all of them.
Go for it.
So Division 1, and just going through the app here, 4 games completed, 1 abandoned. It was the Charlie Bears and the CSRHK Frontiers, the team that just mentioned, the Div 2 champions versus Div 1 champions. Hotly anticipated game, abandoned due to weather at GDB on 8 September.
I got me excited there. I thought it was going to be a big clash, and that's just a washout. Give me a game that was completed.
The Caribbeans played on 1st September, so the first game of the season, and they won over the Master Blasters. So promoting up from Division 2 into Division 1, beaten an established Division 1 team by 35 runs.
Nice.
Chingy Smashers, captain and led by famous match referee S. Gandhi, everyone knows and loves.
Yes.
He had a great performance in that game as well. 20 runs, 2 wickets, a single over. Captained his team to a victory over TCC Strikers on 8th September by 39 runs. They scored 180, kept the opposition to 141 all out. The PACC Golden Stars, they've kept the name Golden Stars. The Rising Stars are now the championship, but PACC are still the Golden Stars. They won their match.
Are they golden? I think
it's more of like a veterans kind of team.
Okay. I mean, because the Rising Stars, even if they're champions, they still managed to lose a game that I tipped them to win last week, and they're still frustrating me into the next season.
I think that brand is gone. I think
my goodness,
gone for good.
The Golden Stars are holding on to their brand because they've got a 24-run victory over the Little Saiwan Gladiators. I think our friend Arthur Hussain plays for the Gladiators. I'll just quickly check if he played in that game. He did indeed. He opened the batting as well. Unfortunately, on the losing side. So, good win there for the PACC Golden Stars. And Indus CC, you mentioned before, the finalists last year, former champions, started their season with a win over the Asians United by 5 wickets.
Chasing the Asian United's in Morning League as well. So, there's a lot of crossover. So that's what we've got so far done. What have we got coming up this weekend?
That was just Division 1. We haven't even gone to Division 2 and Division 3.
3 divisions.
3 divisions.
I knew when I brought Nitesh onto this podcast that this section was going to go much longer than I anticipated. We're already at 6.5 minutes.
Very quickly, what's happened in Division 2, we had 3 games. Indian United getting a 7-wicket win over Lama Power. Nepal Rhino enjoying their first game in Division 2, winning by 3 wickets. A low-scoring game, 81 for 7, chasing 80. But they got over the line at the Hong Kong Football Association Chung Kwan O ground, playing on a flex mat. And the derby game, USRC Avengers versus USRC Marcor, is often the most hotly anticipated game for these two teams, both in Division 2. Avengers coming out on top this time around, 180 for 5. Marcor only managing 168 in response. So that was a very exciting game up at GDB. Up now to Division 3, where only 2 games have been played. One, of course, HKCC Yanwo losing to the Hong Kong U students. HK students, one of the recently relegated teams. Disorganized bunch, lots of talent in there, but they are students. They, get out of bed and forgot they had a game. They managed to get over the line against Yanwu, winning by 87 runs, scoring 184 for 6. The University Cricket of the Year, Ryan Mathang Qureshi, started this game, hitting 74 opening the batting.
Fantastic.
Yanwu managing 97 all out in response. And Lantau CC Sloggers scoring a whopping 277 for 3. Not a Compton at GDB against the Lama Vikings, Lama's third team, who managed 91 for 4 in their 20 overs. So 186 run win for the Lantau CC Sloggers. That's it for the completed matches so far.
Right. Let's get on to this weekend, shall we? How many games off the top of your head do we have? I know you're furiously tapping on the app there. I thought this notebook that you've brought along had all this information in it, but now it's all the app.
In hindsight, I probably should have. So looking at 29 September in Division 1, we've got TCC Strikers against Lalsama Gladiators, so our friend Ataf probably in action again.
Yeah.
This Sunday if he gets the time. And then on the public holiday, 1st October, Caribbeans versus Indus. That should be a good game. They recently promoted Caribbeans against top of the table Indus. That should be it actually for Division 1.
Well, you got to give us your tips.
Well, I'm thinking when it comes to the Gladiators and Strikers, I want to back the Gladiators because I've seen them play a lot more than I've seen the Strikers play. I know players in both teams, and the nature of Challenge League is anyone can really beat anyone. You miss 2-3 players due to work or family commitments, things can change, but I want to back the Gladiators for that. And I think Indus have the pedigree in Division 1 to get over the recently promoted Caribbeans. On to Division 2, the upcoming matches are India Club Panthers. Oh, that's all the way in 22nd September, so I don't think Division 2 is playing this weekend.
Okay.
Very good.
Makes it easy.
Makes it easy. And Division 3, let's see who they've got this weekend. Should be a lot of Div 3 games because they've not got the season underway yet. No, nothing on the upcoming either for Division 3. That's it. It's only 2 games.
2 games. And I'm going for the team with a tiff in it, right?
Yeah, Gladiators.
Okay. There we go. And what was the other one?
It was Indus versus the Caribbeans.
Caribbeans went up.
And Indus won the final.
Indus won the final.
We're in the final.
I like the idea of the Caribbean.
Yeah, I'm going to Caribbeans, and my son plays for a team called the Strikers, so I'll go for the Strikers on the other one. That's my only frame of reference to choose.
So you and I have possibly ruined both games for these two teams by our horrible tipping and not knowing anything about Challenge League. But somebody who does know about Challenge League is Nitesh Hemlani. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you each week with an update of all the games here in Hong Kong in the Challenge League.
Thank you.
And now it's time for Buschy's Birthday Bonanza.
Yes, time for Buschy's Birthday Bonanza. 3 big birthdays here in Hong Kong. And we're going to start with the KCC Infidels player. Well, he plays all over the place. Former under-19 Hong Kong China men's captain Arhan Trivedi having a birthday September 24, turning 20. That's the day we're recording. That's today, Tuesday the 24th. Happy birthday, Arhan. Then on the 28th, from Cricket Hong Kong China women's side, Marina Lamplau. She's having a birthday, so happy birthday to her on the 28th. And then there's one more birthday in my system here for the next week on September 30, turning 7.
Yeah, it's my youngest son, Remy Lee, of the HKCC Under-11 Strikers, who had an absolute day out against the KCC Hornets over the weekend, playing with Chico's son, who I think has just turned 9, actually. So it was a great HKCC, KCC day out, but happy birthday to Remy. We're all very proud of you.
Yes, happy birthday, Remy, and we'll see you on the broadcast at some point next time you're dropping around. Never seen anyone watch more cricket than those Lee boys. They love it. Happy birthday, Arhan, Marina, and Remy. They're the birthdays for this week.
This is Remy Lee from the HKCC Under-11 Strikers. Thanks for the birthday wishes. Bye.
Well, Ady, that brings to an end episode 4, season 2 of the 852 podcast. It was a brilliant one, wasn't it?
Oh, it was jam-packed, this one. Amazing. We had, Challenge League. I managed to sneak in some juniors cricket. We had the women's cricket. We had all the men's cricket. Brilliant.
And your special guest.
And my special guest, of course. How could I forget? Chris Pickett. Legend.
Yeah, that was a great story. Have a listen. If you just... You've already had a listen. You're at the end of the show, aren't you? So make sure you get that. And also, in the birthdays, special little birthday, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think he'll be chuffed to hear that one. Because Obi's got a little sting.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't have a Remy sting to put in right now, so we just give him a birthday shout out, and hopefully, if he likes it, he can send me a WhatsApp message and I can put it together like I did for Obi.
I'm sure he will ask.
Well, that's the end of another big podcast. We'll be back next week. Make sure you check out all the cricket games around Hong Kong. Go to the grounds if you can. If you can't, make sure you tune in to HKCC YouTube or KCC YouTube, where I'll be commentating on Sunday for the big Templars match. That's going to be great. You're out in action as well, Ady, with Bat.
That's right. Gap Ramblers. Go on the Gap Ramblers.
Yeah, go the Gap Ramblers. So there it is, the end of the podcast. Thank you very much. Shall we go home?
Let's do it. Thank you, Buschy.
Hello, good morning. We're tossing a coin to begin.
The 8 for 52 theme song is The Coin Toss from the band The Duckworth-Lewis Method. Find them on Apple iTunes and YouTube and download that song and all their other cricket-related music.
The 8 for 52 podcast is edited, produced and published by Matt Botfield and Aaron Bush for Trip Ahead Limited. Copyright 2024.
I think I'll go in for a bat, and that's that.